Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. Today I picked up the Saab 900 Turbo because I am starting to collect the stuff that I need for this car, the repair panels and all that. And I just thought that maybe it would be a good idea to try to assess the engine a little bit further to know if it's even good. So I'm going to try to do some tests that can give me an indication about the wear and the overall health of the engine and the turbo. So first of all, I'm going to remove the spark plugs. And by the way, I am aware I'm having some vacuum issues around here. This one snapped off last time I messed around with it. This is a non-return valve or one-way valve that allows engine oil vaporizing to go into the intake once again and not the other way around. So I have vacuum leaks on this engine, I know, but yeah, that's not today. And then now I'm going to use my new tool to try to inspect the combustion chamber and cylinder walls and all that. There we have a piston and some slightly rusty walls. Actually, it's not that bad, but it's not really what you want to see when peeking down an engine. But I can still see some honing marks, so I don't think it's all bad. Let's try the next one. Nothing really to see here. There's a valve open right there. Interesting. The round piece on the right side is the valve that is opening at the moment. You can actually see the valve seat on the valve being shiny, which is a good thing. Let's try the next one. Of course, we got a bit of carbon deposit, but nothing too bad. The cylinder wall seems pretty nice on this one. Let's try the last one. Oh yeah, and also a nice looking wall with honing marks, it looks like. And yeah, it looks all right down there. So nothing I see down there is that worrying. There are a bit of rust spots on the wall, on the yeah. This is the front of the engine. That is something that doesn't really make sense when you look at it on a Saab. But this is the front end. This is the back end. The clutch is up here. The auxiliary pumps and all that, and fan belts and all that is up here. So let's say it's cylinder number 1, I don't even know. But the first one at the front shows a bit of rust signs on the walls, but it didn't look too bad. I think it was really light surface rust, so I don't think it's a big problem. Now I'm going to do a compression test. That will tell us a lot more. So let's just begin with the one that I'm most concerned about. This is a really annoying engine to put the spark plugs in because of the angle. So I'm getting ready to test for compression now. Before doing that, I'm going to remove the fuel pump relay because there's not really any reason for fuel to be pumping into the engine. So now let's test cylinder number 1. I'm going to crank it while holding the throttle to the floor, and then we'll take the reading. It sounded like it jumped off, did it? Something happened. Yeah, I don't think I got it fitted right. Let's give it another go. That means there is compression at least. Oh, that's a pretty nice number. I'm not sure how much it is supposed to have, but being a turbo engine, I don't expect it to be extremely high. It is reading 160 psi or 11 bars. That's I think that is pretty good. But let's see what the next one. It sounded like it was slightly less. I'm really interested to find out. It is slightly less. That's 140. Well, that's not perfect. Remember, a couple of heat cycles on this engine could help this because the piston rings could be stuck And with a couple of heat cycles, it could loosen up, of course, but I don't want to see anything lower than that. 140 on cylinder number 2. Let's check number 3. 140 again. So the two middle ones are exactly the same. It could be a coincidence. It could also mean that we have a leak between those two. I don't think so, because the compression is rather high for an old engine that has been standing for so long. I have started it up a couple of times and drove it a little bit, but not a lot. See the last one, number 4. $160 on number 4. Now I rigged up my leak down tester, so we're going to try to leak down test cylinder number 3. If the pressure escapes to cylinder number 2, then we know we have a head gasket or a crack somewhere, but most likely a head gasket. I don't think so though, because I think the readings are too high to really have an issue, but it could be a problem. So let's just try and pressurize this one. As you can hear, there is a lot of leak right now. I'm going to turn the engine until we get the highest reading on the gauge. So I remembered that this car is not an automatic like the Princess, and I can just put it into gear and push the car to turn the engine. So I can look at the leak down tester and see when the result is best. So now I'm gonna put the leak down tester back in. So it seems to be pretty okay. There's a bit of leak down, but it doesn't seem too bad. One thing I want to do is to take a listen into the coolant reservoir, because if I can hear anything there, then we have a problem. Nothing. So the compression figure is 160, 140, 140 and 160. I don't see any symptoms of any leak between the two adjacent cylinders. It's always good to check if they are lower than anything else and adjacent, but I think it's just chance. 140 is slightly lower than I would want to see, comparing it to the 160, but it's okay. And this is a compression test on a cold engine. It is going to be better with hot engine. That being said, I'm also going to add that I don't know how precise my compression tester is. It is new, but you never really know with those kinds of things. But I think this tells me that the engine, well, at least the pistons, the cylinders and the cylinder head is in a pretty good condition overall. So that is checked off. That part of the engine seems healthy enough. I really like to do engine rebuilds, so part of me is kind of wishing that something is wrong when I do these checks, because I think it's really interesting to take it apart and go over everything. But at the current moment, with all my projects, no job and all that, I really don't need an expensive engine rebuild, because almost no matter what's wrong inside an engine, it's going to be rather expensive to rebuild. So that is good enough. But there is one other thing that I would like to check today, also because it's fun. I would like to just grab the impeller on the turbo and give it a bit of a wiggle to see how warm the turbo is, to see if it even spins. It's an item that is rather easy to change, once again rather expensive, but it would just be a fun little thing to see. Also, I would like to do some work on the warm-up regulator, and it makes it easier if I remove all that tubing to get to that and do some work on that. So I'm going to remove a lot of hoses. It's pretty easy because at the moment everything is loosely fitted. Yes, I know that's not ideal because this system needs a pretty tight system to work. It is not working right either, but each and every time I have to start this car, I need to manually operate the flap down here just a little bit just to start it up, which makes me think that the cold start valve or the warm-up regulator is at fault. It runs perfectly once it gets going. I can also just squirt some starter fluid into there, and then it runs just fine. So I think the repair on the K-jet down here has been a success so far. I just need that cold start system to work. But enough about that. Let's remove some stuff. It's not a clean turbo, that's for sure. But it is spinning. There's absolutely no play in this turbo. It just looks like crap. There we have the turbo. As you can see, it looks like something from the bottom of the sea. But there's no movement at all. Don't know if you can see that, but it is completely solid. Still though, it is turning rather nicely. He said, and then it jammed up. Oh no, it was just me. It turns rather nicely. So at least this side of the turbo seems to be in pretty, I'm not gonna say good condition because it looks like crap, but there's nothing worrying about the feeling of it. So I think this turbo could end up being all right. So the compression seems all right, and the turbo looks to be in a serviceable condition at least. Maybe it just needs a good old run. It is just looking old and dirty, but it feels really nice actually. I'm not gonna do more today. I could do a smoke test of the intake system, but it's a waste of time because I have a lot of leaks that I know about already everywhere. I also need to find a vacuum diagram over this engine because there's a lot of stuff that has been plugged off that I would like to reconnect and figure out why it's unplugged and maybe fix that if anything is even wrong. But what is really nice and a big reason why I did this today, one thing was the compression. I would like to check that, but I also need a bit of room because I want to remove the warm-up regulator and try to rebuild that or open it up and clean it up at least, because I think it's at fault. I might do some tests before doing that to make sure that's actually the issue. But there's something, and I think it's minor, that makes this car hard to start. Once it gets going, it's running pretty nice, other than all the vacuum leaks and exhaust leak. And I have a feeling the engine is getting pretty hot, but that could just be because of the turbo. A turbo car gets really hot really quickly. I can remember that from the Renault 5 GT Turbo. It's just instantly extremely hot in the engine bay. So it could be normal. Of course, I would also like to flush the cooling system and all that, but all I wanted to figure out today is the engine serviceable? It is. Then I need to fix that stuff to make it a bit easier to move it from the storage to here, because it's a hassle to take all these tubing apart. So just do this and then it runs just fine. So I would like to fix that because it will make it easier to work on. And then I need to get going on all the rust, because that's a big problem on this car at least. Please do consider becoming a Patreon if you enjoy my videos. All the projects could use a helping hand. So thank you for watching. See you in the next one.